The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are back with another week of podcasting excellence here on the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. It is the Hard Rock Empire, episode number 90, episode number 193 of the Nerdcast Empire. And this week we're going to be talking about the music of October the 17th. Another pretty strong week in music as we get to the releases from the midway point in the month of October as we are approaching the midpoint of November. Of course, we'll talk news headlines, we'll talk about the vault, and of course, we will get to our question of the week in the Power Trio before we wrap up tonight's program. Joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Yeah, big week this week. A lot of good stuff out there. I got to listen to a lot of it, mainly due to playing a lot of Dragon Quest 1 HD 2D remake. Got through that and now on to Dragon Quest 2, which, man, those are great remakes.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely on the list of games I would like to get around to this winter as maybe things slow down in my schedule a little bit. I actually have a whole week where I don't have anything going on, and which is, since it's going to snow here, that's not the worst thing in the world to
not a bad time for that.
Have to go anywhere. But if you are somewhere where it's snowing, there's a good chance it might be snowing quite a bit. So hopefully you are in a warm place, get a chance to check out our podcast as we go through some of the new music. And again, I think another really good week in music this week. Let's get to our news headlines first, and that is how we start every episode of the Hard Rock Empire. And we're finally done talking about Sonic Temple news as the lineups have been announced and we have broke them down. So it's time to move on to some of the things we have typically talked about in the past. And one of those is when we get around to these anniversary editions of albums, and just another thing that makes a lot of us probably that are listening to this podcast or on this podcast feel old. The one today we're going to talk about is Alice in Chains coming up with a 30th anniversary deluxe reissue of their 1995 self-titled album. You can pre-order that on their web store. Obviously, it's, as you would anticipate, I don't want to say it's pricey because obviously you get quite a bit, and I know we'll talk a little bit about that, $295 for the box set, but again, no surprise. There are so many of those albums that came out in the mid-'90s that we have kind of gone throughout the year and talked about these special re-releases or deluxe editions. And this is another one that I think a lot of people are going to want to get their hands on because this is certainly a classic album.
Yeah, and you talk about it being pricey. It is, but at the same time, I think anytime you have these big anniversaries, that's a good time to kind of blow out the budget and do something like this.
Yeah.
And honestly, there are probably a lot of people with the CD back from 1995 that the CD's probably worn out or has slowly degraded, which unfortunately they can do. So it's a good opportunity to get your hands on another copy of this.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that comes with that edition as well. And, it's kind of amazing. I mean, some of them are things that obviously, they've come up with a formula of the things that people will want to pick up. But, the deluxe package includes vinyl LPs, 7-inch singles, posters, art prints, hardcover art book, 12 tarot cards, a cassette for whatever reason, 2 double-sided 24x24 posters, a slip mat, a 3D ballerina, plus a Zoetrope coin record topper. So, I mean, like you said, yeah, you have that price there, but for what you're getting for $300, like, I hate to say it's a bargain because $300 is $300, but it feels like they're giving you a lot for your money.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see kind of the feedback they get when they come up with these giant anniversary collections. Like, what are people excited about? Because to me, the cassette doesn't do anything for me. The double vinyl, that's cool. 3 7-inch singles for Grind Again and Heaven Beside You. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
as far as adding that into what I would consider to be valuable about it. Posters are great. Slip mat for your record player. Cool stuff, but again, I just great album. I don't know if I need all of that. Just give me maybe the double LP and the singles, and I think I'd be happy.
Yeah, and Chris, obviously, welcome in the chat and talk a little bit about how long they're keeping Alice in Chains. Again, Alice in Chains certainly, I think I think we've talked about in this podcast, a band that because of kind of when they came out and because of how they kind of got lumped in with other bands, I think very underappreciated for their
Yeah.
era. And, like you said, I don't know how many bands I could list that I would need a $300 collection for. So if I say like, hey, I don't think I would buy this, it's not that I don't think it's a great collection or they've done a wonderful job. It's just there are maybe only 2 or 3 bands that I would spend that kind of money on something like that. And, but if you're a diehard Alice in Chains fan, I think you're getting a lot here if you're wanting to go ahead and double down and get this collection. I think you'll be pretty happy with the stuff you're going to get.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if you're kind of the super fan, then this would definitely be worthwhile. And it's a great album, just in general.
It is. And, again, I think if there are people that maybe aren't as familiar with Alice in Chains, this obviously you're not going to buy the $300
This is not the
collection.
entry point.
It is not. But, obviously this album is almost certainly streaming in lots of different places. It would definitely be a good entry point as an album to get you into what Alice in Chains does. Obviously not their first album, but it is certainly one with some big hits on there that I think people, can kind of get an idea of what they were doing there in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I always kind of looked at them as being too good for the grunge label,
Yeah.
personally. I mean, if you were going to rank grunge bands, they would definitely be at the top of the list. Also found in the article kind of interesting, I didn't realize that their 1994 EP Jar of Flies was the first EP in music history to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200.
Wow.
Just kind of a weird, random tidbit there, but that's pretty wild.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I did not know that until I read that article. So, again, Alice in Chains, they were amazing. This is definitely worth picking up if you're a super fan. But again, always interesting to see these come out. And there'll be more because obviously, all those bands from the mid-90s that had all those big albums are all coming up on 30th anniversary editions. And we'll see some more 25th anniversary editions of ones that were turn of the century albums. So always worth bringing up. And again, some of them may appeal to you. And, I do like the ones we've gone over where they give you kind of different options, where there is like, here's the everything option, here is the $100 option, or here's the $50 option. Just, kind of like a not a GoFundMe, but Patreon, or one of those.
What tier of subscription you want to sign up for?
Sort
sure,
of one of those things. But
and this also, I mean, this is an album that when it came out, it definitely wasn't the heyday of vinyl. So there were probably a lot of fans that just don't own this on vinyl because in 1995 that wasn't what you were thinking about buying.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, there are probably a few fans that are still rolling around with the cassette if it still hasn't like fallen apart.
Yeah.
But now you can get a new cassette if that's something you really want to do. So, shout out to Alice in Chains. Definitely, again, maybe not worth picking this collection up if you're looking to get into them, but maybe a good place to start if you're looking to get into them from a streaming standpoint. The other news story is one that I know will always bring up interesting conversation, so I always like throwing it out there when I see it pop up because, we, and rightfully so, ridicule the Grammys for their treatment of rock and metal music because it has always been, at best, an afterthought and at worst, a joke in some cases. But nevertheless, they have announced the nominees for Best Metal Performance, Best Rock Album, Best Rock Performance, and Best Rock Song. And they're listed here in the chat. I've posted the story there, so if you want to check that out, definitely encourage you to do that. Obviously, metal performance is one that always is always an interesting list because again, if you listen to our podcast, you know that there's great metal out there. We talk about it every single week. Almost none of that is on this list. I mean, we have probably talked about Dream Theater's album. We probably talked about Ghost's album. We may have mentioned a couple of the other ones.
Yeah.
But as far as the stuff we've picked that should be among the best of the year, not here. But as you look at this list, obviously Dream Theater, Ghost, Sleep Token, Spirit Box, and Turnstile, the 5 bands that are represented in Best Metal Performance. Your thoughts on this? Because again, it is what it is, as they say.
It's amazing what you can group together as far as best metal performance because I feel like Turnstile and Ghost are nothing close to each other. I feel like I'd love to see Dream Theater win because I'm a big Dream Theater fan. I
Sure.
don't see that happening. I feel like Ghost and Sleep Token are kind of the acts that you're supposed to like. Whether that means they're going to win, I don't know. But you kind of see those nominees across the board, like an act like Youngblood being nominated for Best Rock Album, Best Rock Performance, and Best Rock Song. Like, I think he was already kind of an industry darling, but then after the Ozzy tribute show, I think that just kind of ramped up even more, and that's kind of the odds-on favorite, I would imagine. But I feel the same about Sleep Token, and then you have Linkin Park nominated for Best Rock Album, Best Rock Performance. I could see them going that way as well, kind of, hey, triumphant return, blah, blah, blah. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, but, they're not for me.
Yeah, and maybe, in a few weeks, and certainly we will when we get to the end of the year, we'll go back and look at what we think were actually the best albums and best bands of the year based on the stuff that we've talked about on this podcast.
What is Emil and the Sniffers?
I don't know.
I've never heard of that.
I don't have any idea. Chris, if you're in the chat, is that your age group, or is that something even younger potentially? I'm not sure, but
congrats on the nomination.
Congrats, yeah. Always a big Sniffers fan. If you had to pick a winner from each category, not based on what you think they're going to do, but these are the nominees you've been handed, and you are the committee. Who are you picking to win in each one of these categories?
Best metal performance. Just because of the outrage online, I'm going with Ghost.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I would love to see just people flip out because Ghost isn't metal. Even if I kind of agree with that, I think, as far as the Grammys awarding a metal Grammy, it'd be hilarious for Ghost to win that. Best rock album, that's really a tough one. I mean, I imagine the new Deftones is probably pretty good. Best rock performance.
Yeah.
I'll go with Youngblood featuring Nuno Bettencourt, Frank Bello, Adam Wakeman. Changes from the Villa Park.
Anything Nuno Bettencourt's involved in.
Yeah, that's cool.
Got to be good.
And then finally, best rock song. Man, that's a tough one too. Nothing there is really jumping out at me.
Is Zombie a cover of?
I don't know. I'm curious now. I've not heard it. I'm not. Youngblood did the open for Kaiju number 8. That's really all I know him from prior to the Ozzy thing.
It was fine.
It was all right. Yeah, I don't know. I need to probably check out more Sleep Token because they're kind of a big thing right now. But otherwise, I don't really know.
Yeah, it's rough. But yeah, somewhere down the road, obviously we'll go through. And Chris not claiming Emil and the Sniffers, so that is a big oof from him. So again, check out the list and you can make your choices. Again, it's really more brought up to rage bait than it is anything else because that's really all it's good for. It's certainly not any indication of who's actually the best metal bands or rock performances of the year because these guys clearly have no idea what they're talking about. And if you need further rage on that, I'm sure you can find any of Eddie Trunk's socials. I'm sure
I looked up his ex to see if he'd commented on it, and I don't think he has yet. So
I think that was a pretty recent story. So my guess is, and he has a show on Monday nights, I think.
Yeah.
So he's probably saving some of his outrage.
Well, and he's had Rock Hall of Fame to talk about too, which is another point of contention for him. So, and I think he hosted a festival recently too. So there's a lot of stuff about that. So he's been occupied.
He's been busy.
Emil and the Sniffers are considered pub rock.
So is that like
they are from Australia?
Okay.
I don't know. Is it like Chumbawamba or something? Is that pub rock?
I guess so. Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know. That is not my.
That is not what
I
will think of every time I hear their name is Chumbawamba. So,
I mean, their 30th anniversary is probably not too far away.
Yeah, that's very true. The only question is whether that news story will show up on my news feeds or not. But probably, they should just release 70 cover versions of their one song, and that'd be interesting. But yeah, so interesting stuff. Obviously. We don't really care in the end. I mean, congratulations to whoever the nominees. That's as ridiculous as it all is. That is really cool. Especially for some of those. Like I said, I'd love to see Nuno Bettencourt, be involved in something that wins. So that really awesome dude. And but yeah, the rest of it I'm not so sure about. But Anyway, check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. You can listen to previous episodes of the Nerdcast Empire. Of course, you can also do that on Twitch for about a month after the episodes air, and on YouTube as long as YouTube doesn't take the episodes down. We have them up there. Of course, we stream live to Twitch and YouTube every Sunday night. We'll be back with you again next Sunday night, same time, same channels, Twitch and YouTube, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. It'll be the music of October the 24th, and already looking like a very loaded week next week. I believe we've got several Frontiers acts next week. Mike's already listed a couple of them in our Discord that certainly, at the very least, have interesting names and or album art. Of course, that means you should also join our Discord, and that is pinned at the top of both the chats on Twitch and on YouTube.
Speaking of that, did you see in that article they mentioned that they actually added a Grammy for Best Album Art?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that was mentioned in that article, which I had no idea either that they didn't have that before or that they do have that now.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There should have been one all along, I think, but and again, we've had some that should absolutely be nominated that I'm sure are not. And I think nothing AI should win, but we'll see if that actually happens or not. That'll actually cause rage if something that's AI art wins. If you want to talk about angry, those people will be very...
Yeah, the paragraph here. This year, the Grammys introduced 2 new categories, Best Album Cover and Best Traditional Country Album. Previously entitled Best Country Album has been changed to Best Contemporary Country. So they've actually broken that down into traditional and contemporary.
That's interesting.
Probably needed.
Yeah, for sure. Having spent some time in Nashville, I can attest to a lot of the stuff that I would not want to listen to would be considered contemporary, and I'm sure the traditional country is probably stuff that would be much more up my alley, but interesting stuff. I did not know that either. So the album art one is certainly an interesting one. I'll be curious to see how that shakes out. But so again, we'll be back with you again next Sunday, same time, same place, for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. It'll be number 91, and it'll be Nerdcast Empire episode number 194 as we close in on 200 episodes of the Nerdcast Empire. And barring any preemptions, we should get there before the end of 2025. So we'll talk more about that as we get a little bit closer to that. But it is time, as always, to get to our new music for the week. Of course, each and every week, Mike will pull all of the new releases he can find from a given date. That given date in this case is October the 17th, and he will take one track off of those new releases and put them on a YouTube playlist, which is currently being pasted into the chat on Twitch and on YouTube. And then we go through there and we take a look at the new releases and we rank, and we end up pulling a couple of new albums for each of us to talk about on the podcast and bring it to you each and every Sunday night. In addition to the stuff that we pick, there's always some other interesting stuff, some collections, some big name acts that have albums, and we like to spotlight those before we get to our picks for the week. So, Mike, what is kind of the other category that we have for this week?
Yeah, the only things that really jumped out at me, we have the 7th album from the Finnish power metal band Battle Beast. Their newest one, Steelbound, came out. The 10th album from the classic band Biohazard, hardcore metal band, first album since 2012, and the first one on the Black to Black imprint owned by Frontiers Records. So that's kind of cool. And finally, the 11th studio album from Swedish power metal band Sabaton, Legends, is out. So something there for somebody, I'm sure.
I listened to the track on the playlist from Sabaton. I will tell you, if you are a fan of Sabaton, you're probably going to be happy with that.
True to form. It is Sabaton.
It is. It does not disappoint. It sounds exactly like Sabaton, and, your mileage may vary on what you think about that. But, I mean, it was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Again, as we'll talk about when we get to my picks, there is, when you get into the epic side of metal, there's places on the spectrum, and Sabaton is definitely at the end of the spectrum where it's like can be too over the top for people. But again, if you're a fan
great
of
if you want to learn about World War II or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And
there's a place for that.
They have some bangers for sure, but again, there is only so much of that in one sitting that you can take. But good stuff from them, though, honestly. But with that all being said, we do have 2 new picks each to talk about on this podcast. We're going to let Mike, as always, kick it off. What do you have for pick number 1 this week?
Yeah, kind of amazing looking at my picks, both my new picks and my vault pick. I am staying within the United States this week, which isn't something that always happens. But for my first pick, I am in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a melodic heavy metal band. It's their second full-length album. They are Infinity Dream, and the album is Silver Lining.
I love Raleigh, North Carolina. This is certainly one of my favorite places that we have visited over the past few years, and excited to hopefully get back there again next spring. And Yeah, I got to listen to about 2/3 of this album and really, really liked what I had heard. So I think this is definitely one everybody needs to pick up this week.
Yeah, definitely a solid album, and just another band to add to the list that are making good music out of Raleigh, North Carolina. This band features Chris Bennett on guitars and vocals, Dina Altum on keys and vocals, John Wooten III on bass, and Mark Anthony on drums. The Bandcamp page for the album says the following. On Silver Lining, Infinity Dream ascends to new heights of melodic power and atmosphere. With thunderous riffs, sweeping keyboards, and the haunting interplay of male and female vocals, the band delivers a sound that stands at the crossroads of doom, classic heavy metal, and occult rock. For fans of ghost, witchcraft, and the grand tradition of Tony Martin era Black Sabbath. And yeah, it is all of that. The balance between the melody slash dark gothic riffing and the solos, especially on a track like The Ones That Remain, just so well done. And the mix of the male female vocals, it's like something you would get on like a Frontiers record duet album. Like that's kind of the level of what we're talking about here. It just sounds so good. It's only 8 tracks, 41 minutes, and it's really hard to pick standout tracks because the whole thing is just so solid. If I did have to pick some standouts, I would go with Blood Moon, Silver Lining, Lost Embrace, The Ones That Remain, and the track that I picked to listen to, Rewinding Time.
Almost forgot to mute myself. Let's check out Infinity Dream and their new album, Silver Lining. This is the 6th track off of this album, Rewinding Time. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this album. What I've listened to it, I'm excited to get to finish it off later. But it's interesting because when you hear melodic as kind of a descriptor, you have kind of a vision in your mind of what that might be, and they're certainly melodic. That's not a false description, but it's funny we just talked about Alice in Chains because I feel like there is kind of a down tune a little bit to their melody that kind of gives it a different pace and a different feel to it than some of the brighter melodic bands that we listen to, and I think it works perfectly for their what they're going for, but it is definitely a different sound that is maybe something that somebody wouldn't expect if they just read a band being melodic.
Yeah, and I think that's where you draw the distinction between like your typical power metal band and then these guys who are more doom, gothic, rock, essentially. You kind of get that more downtrodden vibes out of the harmony and melody. It's there, but it's not as happy sounding, but it sounds great.
It does. Really, really good. Highly recommended. Definitely worth checking out Infinity Dream, Mike's first pick for this week. One thing, if you did not get a chance to tune in last week on our podcast, I will tell you that I finally figured out how to know when ads are coming on Twitch because we do have ads because we are monetized. Very grateful for that. And we do have an ad coming up. So before Mike gets to his second pick, we're going to go ahead and run that ad now. Mike and I will chat a little bit, and then we will be back with Mike's second pick in about 90 seconds. So please stick around if you're on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, you're just going to get to hear us chat because we don't have ads on YouTube. So we will do that at this time to let that ad go ahead and run, and then we will get around to chatting a little bit. The ad is in progress. And, yeah, I really enjoyed this album. Like you said, I think, it kind of felt like a throwback to me. It felt like something that would have been, 90s, 2000 era with that doom and kind of sludgy pull down. But at the same time, it wasn't too sludgy or too doomified. It still had that, I don't want to say brightness, but it definitely had that melody in a way that lifted it up a little bit more above that.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you start talking about sludge rock, it gets into kind of the stoner rock thing, and they're definitely not doing that, which I prefer. I mean, there are so many like stoner rock bands every week, and if that's what you want to do, that's cool, but it's not really my thing.
Yeah, for sure. And it does bring up a point. We briefly talk about it at the beginning of the podcast. But again, I do encourage you to check out Mike's playlist every week because even though the stuff we pick is obviously what we like, no matter what type of rock and metal you like, it's out there on that playlist every single week. So if you're not checking out Mike's list every week, you're really missing out on potentially some good music that might be in some different genres that we don't talk about.
It's like 121 things for next week right now. I haven't pulled any yet, so it'll probably decrease, but that's scary.
So if you're a fan of a different genre of metal, I definitely encourage you to get on there, listen to those tracks. And again, I think there's a good chance for you to find some new things on there. But for those who are coming back from ads, welcome back. You haven't missed a thing. We're going to get to Mike's second pick at this time. Again, definitely worth checking out Infinity Dream, but it's time to get around to pick number 2. Mike, what do you have for us?
All right, for pick number 2, we're going to Los Angeles, California for a heavy metal band with their second full-length studio album. Follow up to 2023 Gates of Twilight. The band is Wings of Steel, and the album is Winds of Time.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to this whole album, but I really enjoyed the track on the playlist. Definitely looking forward to getting back to this album at some point.
Yeah, these guys are just amazing all around. The band is made up of Damien Reynaud on drums, Parker Hollow on guitars and bass, and Leo Unermark on vocals. So the album's 8 tracks and 49 minutes long, and kind of in a bold move, it opens with a 10-minute, 41-second title track. Again, kind of a bold move. I think, you could just ease people in, but no, we're going to just throw out our title track. It's 11 minutes long, have at it. But it's a really solid track, and contrasts really nicely with track 2, which comes in at 2 minutes and 47 seconds, which is a hyper-fast, furious track and one of my favorites on the album. So after we get the epic 11-minute opener and the ultra fast second track number 3 is a ballad, because why not? Yeah, everything about their presentation is great, but Leo's vocals stand up to any of the top metal vocalists of the 80s. The dude just has some ridiculous pipes. In the title track, some moments he kind of reminds me of like early Jeff Tate and Queensryche, which is never a bad thing. Most of the songs are 5+ minutes long, so they're definitely not in and out really quickly, but there's enough going on musically that you don't really feel it dragging along. Even some of the mid-tempo stuff later in the album just has some really good instrumentation and just never gets boring. If you love guitar solos, you will be in luck, because there are a lot of just ridiculous solos on this album. Standout tracks, if I had to pick them, would be Winds of Time, To Die in Holy War, Lights Go Out, We Rise, and the track that I picked to listen to, the second track that I mentioned, Saints and Sinners.
Check these guys out. This is Wings of Steel with their new album, Winds of Time. This is the second track off of that album, Saints and Sinners. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, we could definitely listen to more of that guitar solo as it continues to roll on there. But yeah, the decision to start with an 11-minute track is an interesting one.
Yeah.
When I saw it on the playlist, my first thought was, oh my goodness, he picked an 11-minute track for this band. Like, what is this, a progressive album? And it really isn't necessarily. Like, there may be some elements of that there, but I don't think it would be fair to classify them strictly as a progressive metal band. Like, there's clearly a lot of different stuff going on. And I think that second track kind of reinforces that with the speed and the guitars and the vocals and everything that's going on there in a very short, small package. But yeah, overall, really good stuff from these guys. Like I said, that 10-minute track, it was really good. I kind of wondered what the rest of the album looked like. Now I know it kind of bounces around between long and short tracks, so I think a little more, easier to want to dive into. But like I said, what I've heard so far is really good.
Yeah, it's again, they do everything really, really well. Like as I'm doing the write up for it, I'm thinking like, man, these vocals are amazing, but it's like, but all of it is. Like, I can't just hype on the vocals when the guitar work is the way it is. It's absurd. And I was looking on Metal Archives, and like the lead singer is like 28 years old. Like,
Wow.
this guy hasn't been. He's not one of those journeymen who have played in 27 different bands, and he's 58 years old. Like, it just kind of takes you back to those bands who have personnel issues. They're not getting along with their original vocalist. It's like, there are dudes out there like this that can sing anything. Like, if you don't want to reconcile with your original singer, there are options.
Yeah.
And not saying this guy is some sort of dude's going to join some established band, but I mean, there are young people that are still out there doing this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this type of music is thankfully still popular with young metal fans and young metal musicians, and we're getting stuff like this, which is awesome. Hopefully we continue to get more of it. So definitely check those guys out, Wings of Steel, with their new release on October the 17th. It's time for my two picks, and Mike stayed in the United States. I will be staying in Germany for my two picks, and we are starting with an epic power metal band from Hanover, Germany, formed in 1999. This is Human Fortress with their new album, Stronghold. Mentioned they were formed in 1999. They spent their first 2 years under the name Time Zone, but then in 99 went on to Human Fortress and have been under that name ever since. This is their 7th full-length album, the first since 2019's Reign of Gold. They did have a compilation album in 2021. The band is Gus Monsano on vocals, Todd Wolfe on guitars, Volker Trost on guitars, Axel Herbst on keys, Andre Hortz on bass, and Apostolos Zios on drums. Yeah, one review noted that their longtime keyboardist left, and so the album is written with fewer keyboard parts than in the past. Obviously, they still list a keyboardist, so not no keyboard parts, but certainly, I guess, fewer, according to this reviewer. It's everything you want in an epic power metal with a little new wave of British heavy metal thrown in as well. The melodies and the vocals are really strong, making the songs catchy and likely fun to hear if you have a big crowd singing along with them. I will say, for a band that deems itself as epic power metal, it's not over the top epic power metal. We just talked about Sabaton. These guys are not that. They're not at that end of the spectrum. I think that'll make this more accessible for metal fans who maybe aren't into the over-the-top power metal. I think if you're more into a mainstream metal, you're going to really dig what these guys are doing. Overall, really enjoyed it. Everything they do here is really strong. It's really a great album, definitely worth picking up. Standout tracks include Pain, The Abyss of Our Souls, The Darkest Hour, and we're going to check out the title track on this podcast, Stronghold. Check these guys out. It's Human Fortress with their new album, Stronghold. This is the opening track and the title track, Stronghold. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
Feel the power.
But yeah, overall, it's just a really strong album front to back. Sometimes you listen to these albums and you just wonder, and I think you had one as well, why there are not more listens on YouTube Music to these guys, because this is really good stuff and more people need to check this out. But Mike, your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, I thought this was a really strong album. Listening to the sample that you provided, it sounds like an epic metal band writing songs with pop metal choruses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is that bigness to their sound, but then when you get to the chorus, it's like, here's some pop sensibility thrown in. It's a good mix, and it sounds really good.
Yeah, definitely enjoyed this album, really front to back. I don't think there was really a weak track on there. So definitely worth checking out. Human Fortress, my first pick for this week. As always, I have two picks, and we are again staying in Germany. As I mentioned earlier, Germany for both picks this week for me. This is a heavy/power metal band from Siegen, Germany. This is Æternia with Into the Golden Halls. This group was founded in 2020. This is their first full-length album after 2022's EP, The Quest. The band is made up of Sven Hamacher on bass guitar, Martin Kramer on guitars, Daniel Gelsomino on lead vocals, or Gelsomino, Hendrik Zur on drums, and David Ponwitz on guitars. I had to laugh at first when I looked at the first review for this album because the review website gave this album a 2.5 out of 10, and the users of the same website right below that gave this album a 9.1 out of 10. So I'm not sure if they had somebody reviewing this that isn't a fan of power metal, and they just didn't know what they were in for, because there's no way this album's a 2.5 out of 10. The record label said it was for people who are fans of pre-symphonic Blind Guardian or Halloween. I can definitely see that. This is, I think, if we have the spectrum of power metal that we kind of referenced with the first band, I think this is a little more toward the epic end, but again, not too far over the top, but maybe a little bit more so than the first choice I had this week. Again, powerful vocals, can hit those high notes when it's called upon, but even just the standard, verses are really powerful. Adding in the driving guitars, the pounding drums, it's a great combination. Again, I'm not sure how you give this a 2.5 out of 10 unless you just didn't know you were getting a power metal album. Overall, it's great. I think the other thing that's really notable about this is it is short. It is 8 tracks in 33 minutes. So there's really no fluff here. It's really solid from beginning to end. There's no filler, and it's in and out very quickly, which I think is really good. It's great metal. For just over a half an hour. Obviously, this band as a unit certainly still fairly new, with this being their first full-length album, so I'm really excited to see what they continue to do as they go forward. Standout tracks include Five Road Forth, Trial by Fire and Water, Lightbringer, Fall of the Church, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast is Dragon's Gaze. Let's check these guys out now. This is Æternia, Into the Golden Halls. This is the second track off of that album, Dragon's Gaze. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. This time cutting out before our guitar solo kicked in there. But, again, both the albums I had this week, I really enjoyed front to back. I don't always pick power metal bands. I mean, some weeks I do, some weeks I steer away from them. But I thought 2 really great choices this week and really dug what Æternia was doing this week. I really enjoyed this album. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what an album would have to be for me to rate it that low.
Yeah.
And I do realize there are plenty of things on the playlist that I just steer away from because I know that's not my kind of music, and ultimately I won't judge it fairly. Some of these like brutal death bands are probably good for fans of that style. I'm just not the guy to say, yeah, I really love this and here's why. I can only assume that's the case because I thought the album was fine.
Yeah, and like I said, I just I don't know how that happened, but the fact that the users immediately underneath are like, "Hey, this is great!" Like, just kind of an interesting situation. That's why music is subjective. We talk about that all the time. So, but yeah, definitely worth checking out Æternia. Really enjoyed this album. Looking forward to seeing as they continue on what they continue to do in their next albums. That is our new music for this week. It is time to move on to the vault, where Mike and I will each give you a classic album to check out. Mike is actually alternating between a couple of different gimmicks in the vault. He has been going around the world and being taken to the most obscure corners of the universe as far as trying to figure out where he is going. But, the next thing we're going to get to, as Mike mentioned, is you're going to start talking a little bit about some of the bands that are going to be coming to Sonic Temple, because obviously we now know what that lineup looks like. So let's jump into the vault and kind of talk about where you're headed this week for the vault.
Yeah, it's a good change of pace, so I don't have to try to find metal music from Tanzania, Guinea, or Kuwait quite just yet. So I looked at the Sonic Temple lineup, and they have the stage designations already, and I thought, what better than to start on Thursday, the 5th stage, right beginning of the lineup essentially. And that fifth stage on Thursday includes bands such as Behemoth, Cradle of Filth, Cattle Decapitation, Flesh God Apocalypse, Suffocation, and the band that I ultimately went with. They are a melodic death / folk metal band from Santa Barbara, California. I am talking about their fifth studio album today, but they are Nekrogoblikon.
Yeah, he put a video in the Discord. It was definitely an interesting experience watching that video, but yeah, they have very interesting sound for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And for my vault pick, I'm going with their 2022 album, The Fundamental Slimes and Humors. I was vaguely aware of these guys. Never really gave them much of a listen, and I regret not having listened to them sooner now. Sometimes it comes down to first impressions when you're demoing bands like this. And going through this album, if I'd pulled like the third track, I think it is off the album, Yin, to listen to first, I probably would have listened to 5 or 10 seconds and been like, it's probably not for me, and moved on. But honestly, like the true tracks before it were both really awesome. And even this song later on, I grew to enjoy it. Like the intro just wasn't it for me. And honestly, there have been times where that's all I've listened to and I've said, okay, yeah, I'm done. They've been around since 2006, and looks like as of 2023, the only member left that you could describe as being an original is the lead guitarist and backing vocalist, Alex Alareza. Looks like the lead vocals are now split between Dickie Allen on harsh vocals and Grady James Welsh on clean vocals. For their 2022 album, Nikki Colon, the original lead vocalist, keyboardist, sequencer, and programmer in the band, he was still in the band at that point. But checking out their most recent work, it would seem that overall their mission statement hasn't changed. They're still producing some interesting stuff. It's heavy, it's synthy, it's melodic, it's death, it's bizarre as all get out. The one guy in the band basically joined originally, and he was just like their hype man mascot. Like he was dressing up as the Goblin character, and now he's one of the vocalists, I believe. It's just completely out of left field, but it's really, really fun to listen to. I can only imagine they put on just ridiculous, entertaining live performances. And looking at their Wikipedia, when I was looking at the member list, I can't imagine how many times I've been able to look at a band list and say, so the original glockenspiel and marimba player left in 2016, but with these guys, that is actually applicable. So, yeah, if you just want fun, hitting every corner of the metal spectrum music, like give these guys a listen and have an open mind, because it is bizarre stuff, but it's a blast. Standout tracks on that album include Right Now, Golden Future, Supernovas, Exploding in Space, Bones, A Lesson in Hate, This Is It, and Fancy Wind. Yeah, I kind of want to see these guys live now. That was a really amazing album.
Yeah, the song you shared in the chat was... Try to find which one that was really quick.
It was one of their
Fiend.
newest videos they came out with. So that was actually off of like a single, I think. There were like 2 tracks, but again, just wild.
It is wild. Like Mike said, I think open mind is a good way to look at it. And maybe not all of it will be for you, but I mean, they're talented. I give them a lot of credit. How much of that I would want to sit down and listen to. I think it would be hit and miss, but like that song was really catchy. So, yeah, it's definitely one I'd have to check out a little bit more of to really get a feel for what they're doing. But Nekrogoblikon, definitely worth checking those guys out. That's Mike's vault pick for this week. We're going to get to my vault pick in just a moment. We're getting ready to have another ad break if you're here on Twitch. So if you are on Twitch and you are not subscribed, of course, ads can go away. If you do subscribe, you can use your Prime subscription for free every month. That'll take all the ads away from Twitch. If you're on YouTube, you don't care about any of this because there are no ads on YouTube. You're going to continue to listen to us talk, but we'll go ahead and run another ad break, and then we'll come back with my vault pick for this week. But again, talking about your vault pick, again, a lot of these bands that we talk about each and every week, you're looking at album art, you're looking at music videos. When you're trying to, more so than the sound, what's that thing that's going to grab your attention? Obviously, the album art, which you can see on the screen, is interesting. And the music video was just immediately eye-catching and totally ridiculous, and it just pulls you into what they're doing.
And I can't remember which one it was as far as, because there were two videos that were kind of like released around the same time. Yeah, I think it was the other one. Actually had the guy sitting at like a desk at an office
That
job.
was
Is that the one?
Yes.
You know, it's just like, that is so weird.
It's like, what made you think of that? Like, but again, it's just it makes it somehow relatable that we have
Yeah.
this goblin at an office job. Like, I'm not sure what happened in his life that he ended up there, but again, just really creative stuff that just adds that extra layer of intrigue to what is already a pretty intriguing band.
Yeah, and it's always good to see bands doing something interesting where it's not, you know, as much as I do like the bands that, hey, we're a traditional metal band, like you can do that, but you can also do what these guys are doing. Like you could still have that sound and still do, how do we tweak it? What do we add to it to kind of carry it forward? And these guys are doing all sorts of stuff.
And again, in a time where music's hard to come by and hard to find, like you got to find a way to stand out. And these guys have certainly found a way to stand out in a crowded music space. But for those coming back from ads, welcome back. We are getting through the vault. It is time to talk about my vault pick. We are going into the letter R of the Frontiers band. So we are getting toward the end of the alphabet, spending 2 weeks on each letter when we can. Last week, we had one and only one band that started with Q, so we could really only spend a week there. We're on to R, and obviously this was a band I wanted to check out because I really dug an album of theirs that I'll talk about in a moment that I actually recommended in one of the very first episodes of the Hard Rock Empire. The band is Revolution Saints, and this is actually their debut album, which is a self-titled album. It is the debut album from Revolution Saints featuring vocalist/drummer Dean Castronovo of Journey, Doug Aldrich of the Dead Daisies and Burning Rain, of course, also formerly of Dio and Whitesnake, and Jack Blades of Night Ranger. And, you know, you put those guys together, and there's just no way you're going to do something that isn't really good. And then let's just throw on top of that, in case that's not enough to sell you on this album was produced by Italian multi-instrumentalist Alessandro Del Vecchio.
Of course.
Because, of course, as you would expect, this really sounds like a Journey album. You know, they even brought in Arnel Pineda to sing on You're Not Alone and brought in the guitarist Neil Schon for Way to the Sun. So just kind of tying in those Journey ties as well. We talked about Against the Winds, which was their most recent album, on the third ever episode back in early 2024 when we were talking the music of February the 9th of 2024. So this is a band that we've spotlighted, and they're continuing to do good things. They've got a different lineup now, but still really good. And again, if you're a fan of Journey, there's a lot to like here. This album ranked number 198 on the U.S. charts, 66 in Germany, 54 in Sweden, and 33 in Switzerland. You know, I hope they continue on. You know, I know Castronovo kind of ran into some legal issues there for a bit, I think. Don't know if he's through all that, but hopefully they keep putting out albums. I really like their sound. It's like a modern Journey, which I've always been a big fan of Journey. So continuing to do new things in that front is definitely something I would be interested in. Standout tracks include Back on My Trail, Turn Back Time, Way to the Sun, and Here Forever. Again, it's what Frontiers does best, and this is one of the cases where you put enough people together that clearly want to keep doing this, that the act continues beyond the first album. They've had several albums since then, and you know, it's what attracts you to the Frontiers label when you've got guys like Dean Castronovo, and you know, you put Jack Blades in there and Doug Aldrich. You're bound to come out with something good, and it just feels like so many of the Frontiers bands we run into, that's kind of one of those subsections where it's like, these guys have all done really amazing things that you like. What if we just put them all together in the same room, and we'll bring Alessandro Del Vecchio in from whatever he's doing to produce and write the songs? And I'm surprised Magnus Carlsen's not involved. It wouldn't shock me if he has some sort of credit on this, but it's just the Frontiers formula that just seems to work really well.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about kind of their label in general, and just kind of where we are with the music industry nowadays, is I feel like a lot of these artists, when their time in terms of mainstream popularity faded, I don't know if there was just not the interest or the infrastructure around kind of having them continue to release new music regularly. And I feel like you're seeing a lot more of that now than ever before, which is a great thing. It's just, what did it take for us to get to this point? Like, I don't know, but I'm not arguing.
Yeah, for sure. If you're a fan of any of their stuff, it's definitely worth checking out. Next week, We're going to check out a band called Resurrection Kings. They feature vocalist Chaz West, who was with Bonham and Tribe of Gypsies, guitar player Craig Goldie, Dio and ex-Jafria, and bass player Sean McNabb, who's been with Lynch Mob, Dokken, Quiet Riot, Burning Rain, and Vince Appice, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. But he's been with Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath, Dio. So a lot of, again, guys who've done really cool things thrown in together into one band, bringing Alessandro Del Vecchio to write the songs and produce it. So I have no idea what this is going to sound like, but I'll be shocked if it's not amazing. But that's what I'll be talking about next week when we get to the vault. It is time to get to the Power Trio. It's our hard rock hat trick where we will talk about the question of the week. And Mike was the one that came up with this week's question of the week. And a question bore out of frustration that has been asked many, many times and has yet to be answered because for whatever reason, the powers that be don't seem to want to make a change here, but we're going to help them out. They don't. This is we are a solutions-based podcast, if nothing else. If you've ever been to a Columbus Blue Jackets game, you know that their goal song is not good, and so we're going to try to help them out. We are going to choose the top 3 songs that could replace the Columbus Blue Jackets goal song, which is The Whip by, what's the name of the band again? Loxley.
Yeah.
Now, we should note, if you're not a fan of the NHL's Columbus Blue Jackets, it starts off with a little bit of, for those about to rock, we salute you, cannon fire, and then it cuts into just a bunch of woes from this terrible song.
Yeah.
Obviously, the cannon is loved and hated, I guess, depending on how you feel about the Jackets. It is definitely unique to Columbus. It ties into the Civil War theme of the team, which, just kind of want to bring this background for people that maybe don't know, because that could impact some of our choices. But it's just a shame because it's you don't want to root against your team to score goals, but it's like, man, I don't want to hear this song anymore. You kind of get this mixed feeling when you go to games.
Yeah, and first off, the for those about to rock part is fine. Like, when he says fire, that's when the cannon goes off. We salute you. That's great. But then it just like turns into a car dealership commercial. I don't know what we're doing here. And it's a shame because Columbus in general has used really good music over the years. When you think of like before they skate out on the ice, they play Struggle Within from Metallica.
Yeah.
Leading into like Machine Head. Like, that's awesome. Why can't we do stuff like that for everything we do?
And I feel like for those who maybe don't know, and maybe for younger fans you wouldn't know, I think some of all this kind of came about because the guy who did the song Rock and Roll Part 2 got into a lot of trouble. So basically a great majority of the sports teams that were using that for goal songs and celebration songs stopped, which meant everybody kind of had to scramble and go out and find their own thing.
Why did they never use Rock and Roll Part 1?
That's a good question. I don't know if that got blackballed as well, but
did now if it hadn't before.
I'm shocked that somebody just didn't cover the song. Like, I felt like that maybe that's a way to go about getting around it. But anyway, that song really kind of went away, so we have to find another option. Did we get anything from Shane this week?
We did, and Shane is good for topics like this because I think he's going to hit you with stuff that's pretty mainstream, which I think is important when you're talking about goal songs. It's going to be something that the crowd gets into.
I agree.
Number 1 is a sports anthem. I don't know if it works for a goal song necessarily, but he went with Queen's "We Will Rock You." I mean, it's an anthem.
It is. I think that qualifies, so that's fair.
Number 2, Bon Jovi's "It's My Life."
I feel like somebody's using that. I'd be shocked if like the Devils or someone isn't using that, but
that would make sense with the Jersey connection.
Yeah, but I don't know that they're using it, but I feel like that does make a lot of sense.
One that I think would be really, really intense and cool, Rob Zombie's "Super Beast."
Yeah, that's a definite interesting choice.
Then his wife chimed in with Guns N' Roses' "Welcome to the Jungle."
Yeah.
Another sports anthem.
Sure.
So those all would certainly work.
Yeah, I think those are definitely solid choices. Chris has given us choices in the chat, so what does Chris have for us?
Let's see. He wanted to go with a Cannon theme. That's wise.
That's fair.
"Fire" by the Ohio Players.
Okay.
"Cannonball" by the Breeders.
That one I saw mentioned quite a bit with people suggesting, because I feel like, are they an Ohio band, I think, maybe? I'm not sure. But
that I don't know. And great pick for his third pick. Blow My Fuse by Kix. I mean, great song. That would work perfectly.
Ties in, yeah, for sure, with the cannon fire. So I think that would be a really good choice there. You got your picks as well. What did you pick?
Yeah, I wanted songs that for my number one pick, I wanted something to be kind of fun, like party atmosphere. So I went with Extreme's Play With Me.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's out of the box, but still great song. Super fast, enjoyable. Number two, they will never use, and they should never use, but I thought it'd be hilarious if after Columbus scores a goal, they play Lamb of God's Redneck.
That would be great. I don't know if there's a radio edit of that song out there somewhere.
I hope not. That would just ruin it for me.
There probably is. But yeah, that would be something.
Number three, Metallica's Hit the Lights.
Yeah. That's another one that I feel like I've seen mentioned. I don't know if it's being used somewhere, but that would make a lot of sense.
I just think that, hit the lights, light goes off,
yeah.
Makes sense.
No, I like that. Chris has a couple honorable mentions he's added in the chat. Boom by POD
Yeah, sure.
and Click, Boom.
Boom.
Again, songs that likely are being used. Obviously, the one choice I didn't put down, but is an option, is you just continue to play For Those About to Rock.
Totally
We salute
acceptable.
you. Would absolutely work. Along those same lines, though, my first pick was Thunderstruck by AC/DC because I feel like that would be just tie right in after Those About to Rock, and Thunderstruck's you got a lot of different ways you can go. You can go with a guitar solo at the front. You can do with the chorus. I think that works. Number two is one you've already mentioned, Machine Head by Bush. They already used that song. I think that would work. Tie that in. Number three, I went way outside the box because it's okay, these people really want some sort of woes to chant. So we went with a song I heard on the radio yesterday coming home. It's The Voice by John Farnham. That's a great song, and you've got your woes in the chorus that people can do the woes along with. Honorable mention to the greatest goal song of all time, the former Hartford Whalers Brass Bonanza, which you've ever played an NHL game from the 90s before they got rid of the Whalers. That's classic. You can steal the Brass Bonanza.
Sure.
I know Carolina uses it occasionally, but that's the all-time greatest NHL goal song. Civil War by Guns N' Roses.
I was thinking that too, but I couldn't think of how to incorporate that into a goal song. It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, you could also, if you're thinking along those lines, because you mentioned Red Light, you could do Roxanne. Who have you put on the red light or whatever?
Yeah, you could do that.
There's a lot of different tie-ins there for sure. But
I had a couple honorable mentions too.
Hit me with those.
Motley Crue's "Kickstart My Heart."
Yeah, that's.
Classic.
Live version, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the fans can sing along, of course.
Attempt to, at the very least. Number two, The Offspring, "All I Want."
Okay.
Yeah, you got yeah. Just cool song.
Yeah, Offspring's got a few that would probably qualify, just because their sound is so. And that's the one thing about metal and even alternative music is there's a lot of it that would fit for the grungy. Because to me, some of the soundtracks of some of the hockey games playing growing up were how I got into a lot of those bands.
Yeah.
Because I'd even thought about, you could probably start thinking about some old WWE Raw theme songs, Raw's War is a Thorn in Your Eye. There's a bunch of ones you could go that direction with as well. So.
Final honorable mention, Poison, "Nothing But a Good Time."
Yeah, that works. Again, great choices. Every one of them we've mentioned, which is more than a dozen options. Definitely better than the one they currently use, but we don't get a vote. But we would like your vote. Go to our Discord. Let us know what goal songs you would love to see, whether it's the Blue Jackets or whoever your favorite team is.
Chances are you need a better goal song.
Chances are you need a better goal song. So definitely throw that in there. Let us know what you think on this week's Power Trio. But it is time to bring this episode of the Hard Rock Empire to a close. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We'll be back with you again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. It'll be the music of October the 24th coming up next week. A big thanks to Chris for joining us in the chat. A big thanks to Shane and his wife for providing answers this week. Big thanks to Mike for all his hard work on this podcast. Big thanks to Stowe Lake Media for their continued support of our podcast, and a big thanks to you whenever and wherever you are listening to our podcast. We'll talk to you again next Sunday night for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.